Welcome to Purple Easel Spotlight, where we put the spotlight on artists and creatives. My name's Latoya.
And I'm Megan.
And we're both art instructors here at California's largest paint studio, Purple Easel.
Today, we are going to discuss Georges Seurat, also known as Seurat the Dot.
Oh, that's easier to say.
Yeah, and easier to remember.
Yes.
So he was a post-impressionist, and he's a very interesting fellow. He devised Pointillism. Yeah, and we're not going to touch that one again. I'll explain what it means, but I won't try to say it. And Pointillism, which you're probably familiar with. Stippling.
Oh, okay.
Dots. Lots of dots.
Gotcha.
That's the name, nickname. So he was traditionally trained and spent a lot of time copying the works of old masters. He then decided to skip out on school, as they do,
Yes.
and did a year of military service, oddly enough. But then when he finished that, he came back and opened a studio up with a friend, cohort, and his first works were mostly Conte drawings on rough paper. And if you're not familiar with Conte, they're referred to as like crayons, but they have a clay base instead of a wax binder. And they're almost like pastels, but a little bit harder.
Oh, okay.
So often mixed with charcoal or graphite compressed. You can buy little sets of them, and they brown and gray, white. So we have some examples of his drawings. And the thing to know about Georges was that his father was not really much a part of his life.
Okay.
He had some brothers and sisters, and they all lived in an apartment while his dad lived in a suburban estate, and his father would come every Tuesday for dinner and then take off again.
Wow.
And that was kind of the extent of the relationship, and his father didn't talk. They would have dinner in silence, and it was a very awkward affair. So of course he grew up to be just like Dad.
Oh, no. Okay.
He was a pretty reserved, quiet, standoffish personality. And he kind of interpreted art in a very unique way. As a result, he had a scientific approach to a lot of his art, which is weird to think of when you look at some of these drawings, because they seem quite chaotic.
Yeah, very scribbly.
It is. It's very sketchy.
And not sketchy as in like...
Not that sketchy. A lot was happening at this time period. Industrialization was really taking over. Science was blossoming at the time. And a lot of that in the vein of optics. So there was publication that came out, and it basically explained color theory.
Okay.
And it was by a chemist who repaired old tapestries as a side gig. And he noticed that when you are dyeing a color to try to match, he was having difficulty getting it spot on, and discovered it wasn't a problem with the dye itself. It was the neighboring colors as to where you were putting it. So he had an entire book discussing how color is affected by other colors, which at the time was revolutionary. They had not thought about that. Newton had come up with a basic color wheel, but he took it to the next level.
Wow.
So Seurat was super intrigued by all of this and essentially decided to incorporate it into his art and really explore color.
Interesting.
In 1883, he decided to start working on bathers, and it's very similar to Impressionism in the sense that the light is really a part of the overall composition, and you get a little bit of the blurriness, but not to the extent as what the Impressionists were.
Yeah.
He really didn't care about feeling. He went kind of the opposite direction as the Impressionists, who are all about the overall sense that you get looking at it, and he was more concerned about the composition and the color. And I think a lot of that has to do with his more classic upbringing. And you see some of that kind of being brought into his work. So this was the first like foray into painting, and it was not really a success.
Oh,
It was rejected by the salon, and he got really irritated with the lack of organization among the independent artists, which was the other option at the time. So he's like, you know what, I'm just going to make my own group. And so the Society of Independent Artists was created. And it totally makes me think of like introverts unite, alone, away from each other. Like,
away outside.
and I think that's pretty on brand for him.
Yeah.
The following year,
Okay.
Seurat started on what we all pretty much know him for. And it's the Sunday afternoon on the island of Le Grand Jatte.
Ooh.
So, unlike most artists who were just going out and painting things that they thought were cool, he did extensive studies beforehand, and he sketched different components and even did some smaller paintings that existed as like practice for this. It took him 2 years to create this painting.
Wow.
The technique that he uses is to allow the viewer to optically blend the colors rather than him doing it on the canvas. So looking at it, it looks pretty normal. But if you look up close, it's millions and millions of dots.
Okay. You can see like in the tree, especially.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
It's not perfectly crisp. And that's why. And he was really playing with complementary colors and how the eye will manipulate them into one color, that even though there's two separate ones right next to each other.
The eye do be doing that.
Yeah. And he had a very, very mathematical approach. In fact, they did x-rays of this piece, and you can see he like moved things around a bunch.
Really?
And you can see there's so much about this painting. It's insane. We won't be able to get into all of it, but if you look at the linear trunks of the trees, how all the people are placed, and then the horizontal lines, the like shoreline in the back, and then the shadow are like right, it's all very grid-like. And then the placement of the little girl, the only child in the whole thing, is the only person looking directly at the viewer as well. And it's very luminous. And that kind of harkens back to Newton's color wheel, where white was the center, surrounded by all the colors. And then the placement of the figures is very classical proportions. And in addition to that, you might notice that despite there being all these groupings of people, nobody talking.
No, it looks like a fun time, but you don't hear the fun time.
It feels very silent and still. Like it is a snapshot, but like a very posed snapshot. And he spent weeks at a time going to this island every day and getting sources, and then just compiled them together in the way that he wanted to.
Wow.
There's, in fact, a ton of theories as to what the exact content is here, though they are quite unsubstantiated. But it is pretty interesting. Some people think that this is an island of ill repute. And the woman in the front, the largest one, is a kept woman. Because apparently monkeys, which she's got a little pet monkey at her feet.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not a dog. But
Yeah. There's a monkey. And I guess they symbolize lust. News to me.
Oh,
Right? And then there's also a nurse, which the like red scarf and hat situation, it's the back of her, but that was a pretty well-recognized uniform. And then you've got like some working men. The guy that's kind of lounging in the little cap.
Okay.
Just very dressed down compared to most other people. So there are thoughts about what could really be going on here, but there's nothing really to indicate that that's accurate.
Okay.
Because originally the woman was by herself.
Okay.
And then the guy got added in on her arm. And then,
Is it just people speculating these days?
yeah, it is, but it was interesting. And he's also not shied away from that kind of content anyway. Like, he did a lot of figure studies and other paintings that you're like, oh, this wasn't a thing for him. Like, it was not a problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it was kind of a fun way to look at it. And it just shows you people put their own like meaning into things that
Totally.
for anything at all.
Totally. This is also very interesting, though.
It is. And this painting in particular is super popular. If you don't recognize it off the bat, you might with a little bit of context, because it was featured in Ferris Bueller. In fact, the painting itself sold after he passed for like 800 francs. Yeah, not very much, to a man who lived in Chicago, who then donated it to the museum in Chicago, and it's been there ever since. And that's why it takes a nice place in Ferris Bueller.
Okay.
It's also the basis for an entire play.
Really?
Sondheim did an entire musical, Sunday in the Park with George, just based off of a painting, which is pretty cool. And then my favorite take.
Nice.
We've got the cast of the Office reliving it.
Nice. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It shows up a lot, and it's pretty infamous.
Yes, it is. I think everyone knows.
Yes.
Even if you don't know like the title or the name, or you've seen it before.
Right. It's around. Although Seurat did focus on the emotional part of his paintings, like that wasn't his end goal, he did have some theories, and it all really came back into his color theory experience. So he says, the emotion of gaiety can be achieved by the domination of luminous hues, by the predominance of warm colors, and by the use of lines directed upward. Calm is achieved through an equivalence or balance of the use of light and dark, by the balance of warm and cold colors, and by the lines are horizontal. Sadness is achieved by using dark and cold colors, and by lines pointing downward. So it's like the most scientific, cold approach to art.
Yeah, and checks out. Checks out.
But he made some beautiful work.
I'm just thinking about, it's crazy how you can have people with these types of like personalities, and they make all these beautiful things. And then you have someone who's like all super light and love and light, and they make like super dark
I
stuff.
know, it's crazy. The juxtaposition, you never know what you're going to get. You can't judge a book by its cover, right? Here you can see this great painting of a tree, and he's got that same pointillism, and it shows a lot better in this one. You can kind of see what's happening. But the colors, and I know color was his thing, but it's like so pretty.
It's so rainbowy, and I love stippling, by the way. I like to see, okay, it's gonna sound dumb, but I guess there's this myth about like vampires. If you want to distract a vampire, you grab like some rice or sand, right, and you throw it, and they're gonna count it or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That's me. I want to see all the little dots. I want to like taste the little rainbows. I want to see the dots. So that's me. I like looking at all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you don't really get that with the Sunday at the Park, because it's like 10 feet. It's huge. So unless you're up close to it, you're not going to get that. And any picture we can possibly see of it remotely isn't going to have that same effect. This, you get to see it a little bit more. And I think because it's a smaller scale painting and we can enlarge it in such a way that doesn't distort it. But yeah, you can totally see the use of the complementary colors. He's got lots of purples next to yellows and reds next to green.
It's very like whimsical and dreamy, imaginative. Yeah.
And he was not a dreamy
That's
god.
That's so crazy. He's like, meh. Well, I'll make dreamy stuff though.
And what's the Christmas Carol? Ebenezer.
Yeah, very Scrooge's.
Like Scrooge, humbug.
Yeah, humbug.
Let me make something beautiful.
I know. It's so pretty. It's kind of like a mosaic.
It is. It really has mosaic vibes. It does, because it's very piecemeal, and it creates an overall lot like the Impressionists do, but a little more structure.
Yeah. I can see that.
Unfortunately, he died when he was only 31.
Oh.
Possibly of diphtheria, maybe pneumonia, maybe meningitis, and diseases of your. So you don't need to worry about so much now. Pneumonia, but yeah. And then he also had a son with his mistress, who nobody knew about, who died 2 weeks later.
Okay.
And she was pregnant with their second child, and that child died shortly after birth. So she was going through a rough time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
On top of it, his family didn't even know she existed. So I can't even imagine what that was like.
Goodness gracious.
But he died at his childhood home because, like his father, he would go back and have dinner with them pretty much every day. His father was only once a week, but he went back to his mom's every day for dinner. And ended up getting sick and dying there. So, and nobody even knew he was living with this woman and having kids with her.
So so was he like famous, or was he ever like? It sounds like he was more revered when he died.
Yeah. I mean, he had a pretty short lifespan. Even though he had a lot of classically trained, art schooling and stuff, I don't think he really hit the ground running. He was part of artist communities, so I think like the people who knew him.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he really sold much work. I didn't really get into that part of his life. I don't think it mentioned him having any other careers though, so maybe it was enough to sustain him, or maybe he had family money.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We're going to segue from Seurat the Dot to Rachelle Kearns. I'm very excited about. But first, we're going to go with a little bit of technique lesson situation. And it's a phenomenon called bokeh. And it's essentially how a camera lens captures depth. And things become out of focus in the background or even in the foreground, depending on where your focal point is. And you see it pop up in a lot of art, hers especially, so it's important to kind of be familiar. But we also have some here at PE.
Yeah, some lovely Purple Easel paintings. We have a lovely kind of like bokeh dot Christmas one with some milk and like a little gingerbread man.
Soup's cute.
Yeah, so cute. And the cool thing I like about that is no one needs to tell you that the bokeh dots, like you just know what they are immediately, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is really cool. It's called Waiting for Santa. That's what it was called. So that one's super duper cute. And we also have one made by our camera producer person who's editing for this. She has a lovely painting called Make a Wish.
Which I love this.
Yeah.
It's one of the first ones I saw taught when I started, actually.
It's one of like our very popular ones. And it also has like those bokeh dots. And the really cool thing I like about them is that there's just like this cool whimsical, like nice lighting vibe to them. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but
fun to do. I've experimented myself with some. I've done like some watercolors where it's a rainy window and the light in the background is all kind of the bokeh effect. So it's a lot of fun. And I know you yourself have also dabbled, right?
Oh, me? Yeah. Oh, I also have this lovely painting I made of a cat. And so this is the best ever. It's so cute. Thank you. So we teach paint your pet here at Purple Easel. So we come in, we teach you how to paint your pet, but we sketch it out on a canvas. Now this is just a cat that I've had off the internet, like a picture. And the polka dots weren't there, but I just wanted them because I wanted him to be, it's a memory of him. Okay, so there's a whole backstory I have for this cat. So this is him looking at his wife, and it's a memory from back in the days. But this is like, wow, look at, she's so gorgeous. Anyway, so that's essentially kind of what we're talking about. And there might even be some here, like in the background with our plants as well. So
yeah, very true. Lighting is fun, folks. I dug up some older work of Rachelle's, and you can totally see the bokeh effect going on here. Can we just talk about bubbles for a second?
Absolutely. I love bubbles.
I love bubbles. There is so much nuance in a bubble, and you think about how simple a thing it is. Like, why is that so cool? And it's so simple. It kind of makes me think of American Beauty with the whole bag in the wind thing, which is so right now. At the time, everybody's like, "Oh man, that's deep."
I totally forgot about that. Yeah,
but there's beauty everywhere. There really is, and you can take inspiration from the simplest things. Still lifes should never be underestimated because I don't know. There was one, we didn't get to showcase it, but we did an artist, and she had this beautiful painting of a pot. And we were both like, I want that pot. Like, it's a pot. It's not even anything special, but when it's done well, man, it'll get you.
I agree. And these bubbles are just, we also have bubble paintings here at Purple Easel. Yes. And it's so simple because there's like so much color and rainbow and stuff. But then there's also like, if you've seen those snowflake ones when it's like really cold and then like pouring snowflakes around it, it's just like pretty cool just to see like bubbles. And I also like it. At first, I thought these were photos.
Oh, yeah.
I thought these were actual just photos. Until I'm like, wait, we're covering an artist. Painting. So I'm like, oh wait, this is really well.
She really captured that effect, like the blurry background, kind of nondescript, and then the bubble that's in focus, with super sharp edges. And even though there's a lot of weirdness going on in the bubble because it's reflective, everything gets distorted, and they're so fun. Those are so fun.
They sure are. Ooh.
Now you can start to see the transition into what we'll be getting to. This is essentially eliminating that sharp focus and just creating like a dream-like quality by putting it all into bokeh dots. And you can it still reads as tree and light and color, and it's vague, it's abstract, it's there.
Yeah, fair, that's fair. And you know, it's so vague, in fact, I think you can kind of make it into anything.
You could, and maybe it's a figure standing there.
Because I thought it was a figure standing there.
You know, now that I look at it, it kind of does look like a figure. I don't know, maybe the part that kind of goes across that part is what reads tree to me. But yeah, it does look like somebody's legs. Art.
Art, yeah. Oh, pretty.
I love this style. There's a whole section of her website. She calls them Mercyscapes. And she actually did a commission for Tiffany's in Las Vegas. So if you happen to be in Las Vegas and want to go see some art, you could just go to Tiffany's, and they have it right behind the counter. It's very cool. It's like Tiffany blue, but it totally reads as, you know, sparkly water. Nice. It's a good combination. I feel like you get the kind of like squishy.
I was thinking the same.
And then the circles.
More. I want to see more. Pretty.
There are several of her works that are like super zoomed in, and they're just meant to be that way. And it's kind of abstract. It really takes me back to Seurat because it's more about the color study at this point.
Okay.
And I find that so pretty. I've dabbled in some similar things because I followed her for a while, and it's always fun to experiment. It's hard it is really hard to layer those dots in a way that makes sense. It seems like you're just throwing confetti in lamp, but
no,
it's not.
Yeah, I can see that.
Intentional about everything. And then like you mix a color, like, can I use this anywhere else, or am I gonna instantly manipulate it into another color and keep going?
It's like you have to. It's almost like your eyes are going to get tricked, but you have to know before they get tricked. If that makes any sense, to make it make sense.
It. Yeah, it's intensive. And for her to be so successful at it, like I don't know what's going on in her brain.
Yeah,
she's got like the Seurat like structure without the rigidness.
Yeah, I was thinking that without the Debbie Downer.
Yes. But this floral one is so pretty. It's a rose.
Yeah, and you know, clear. Yeah, you can literally tell that it's a rose.
How many colors are in that? Every possible shade of green, just about.
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty, and just the decision on like, I need a lighter color up here to balance it.
Yeah.
This is still the focal point. This is the darkest spot, or whatever.
Yeah, because I feel like me, I'd be like, oh, wait, I took too much attention. Wait, I got to make that dark again. Like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
I feel like there'd be so much, because again, you have to get ahead of the mind trick or like the eye trick.
This one kind of shows her process, and you can see it's very loose, pretty kind of sketch background color so that she can go in and develop it further.
Gotcha. So pretty.
I know.
Wow. It's so soft.
It is so soft, and it's so whimsical. And I like the things that are recognizable as well as the things that are very abstracted, like just the use of color and the composition of it.
Yeah.
Even though there's not necessarily shapes,
It's cool because your eyes tend to wander, but in a good way,
Yes. It's dynamic. It keeps you moving and keeps you interested. If it was just a sterile picture, you'd be over it in 2 seconds. I could look at this for quite a long time.
It's crazy because this one, it looks like a picture, like a photo or something. It just looks like a photo.
It totally does. And I think the thing that makes this particular one so successful is just that little band of dark right across the top. And that way it reads like land and water. Just that one little decision. If that wasn't there, I mean, maybe water still, but not nearly as effective.
Yeah, agreed. Took the words right out of my mouth.
I love this series that she did on chandeliers. And I included a picture of her with a bunch of them just so you get an idea. I think it's so fun when artists do a series of things and they pick a subject and then just go ham and like really explore it.
That's so pretty.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I can see this like hanging up in an estate somewhere, like it's luxury. It's
looks like crystals.
It's so pretty. And it's taking that whole light dynamic with the bokeh dots and just like, I
know, right? I really don't.
There are words. It's just beautiful, and it's very cerebral, and you don't even think about that at first glance.
That's the craziest thing. It's not just like, it's not like she just painted a chandelier. I don't know what it's everything.
It's very impressive. We're flummoxed. It takes a lot for us to be speechless.
Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. It's so good. And just like thinking about all like the time and the effort that it takes to make these.
So many of these are giant. And so like up close, it's, it's kind of whatever, but across the room, spot that. Oh man.
You know what? This is probably one of those things where you would see it across the room, you're like, oh wow. And then you go up to it close, you're like, oh whoa.
Yes.
You would like probably think that things would like clear up, but it doesn't. And that's the crazy thing because it's gonna remain like blurry, but that's the cool part.
Right.
And then you get to see the detail. And it's like kind of a mind blown. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of depth to these.
Yeah.
There's also quite a bit of depth to Rachelle. So on her website, she has some little like bloggy type things. And I thought, well, this really resonated with me, so I'm going to read it off to you. She did some sort of interview or something with some people from the founders of Carve Out Time for Art. And they were having a chat. And so this came up. Limitations on our artistic practice, whether explicitly or implicitly opposed. Yes, motherhood has minimized the time I have to pursue my artistic career, but I do not see it as a limitation. That perspective is dangerous and could lead to resentment. I wouldn't be the artist I am without the journey of becoming a mom. One informs the other. I chose motherhood, and for now, other than being a wife, it's my most important priority. And I'm in it for the long game. There's no need to hustle here. It'll be what it'll be. It's important to remember you can have it all, just not at the same time.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. Huh. Nice.
That's
inspirational.
It is inspirational. And it really says, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be about being lucrative.
Yeah.
To be creative.
And it doesn't have to be like a one thing over the other.
Exactly. I love how she just says one informs the other. And that is so true. It becomes a part of who you are and how you experience life, whether it's your career, the friends you keep, the family members that you surround yourselves with. Like, everything contributes to you and therefore becomes part of your work. It's all linked together.
That was very nice.
I really
love
like
those
that
words.
quote. Aside from being a mom also, but like just in general about life.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it is I feel like you don't have to be a mother to understand that at all.
Yeah. Everybody gets pulled in a million different directions and has things that they're responsible for that take away time that you could be using to create. And I think that's just so beautiful. Like, you can have it all. Maybe not all at the same time.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah. That's what I like about it. It's not all at the same time, but it can happen.
Yes.
It can be done.
Absolutely. Very inspiring.
So one takeaway that I have for this episode, I think that is really important, is that you can't be new and great at the same time.
Absolutely.
You have to fail. It sounds so like
it's so fatalistic.
Yeah. But no,
You have to be willing to fail.
yes.
And that's just part of the process.
And
And it feels like you're not making progress, but that is the progress.
then, you know what? And the progress is the non-things too. The things that aren't related to what you're working on.
Yeah.
Because it's all a part of like the bigger picture, and it's all a part of like your timeline.
Yeah.
That makes any sense. Like your life's timeline. So like your life's work can and probably will be chopped up into little bits. At this point of my period, I did this and that got me into this. Or I did this for a while and then I got back into it. It's not just like I'm an artist and then that's just...
It's not a linear journey.
No.
It's a hodgepodge of dots all put together to create a beautiful image that is you and your work.
Wow. And from all of us here at Purple Easel, thank you so much for tuning in.
Make sure to check out the work of our artists in the links below, George Seurat and Rachelle Kearns.
Join us at purpleeselplus.com to paint with the world's largest paint sip studio online.
And if you're in Southern California, swing by the studio, make sure to come out and hang out. In the meantime, create more and create often.
Bye. Dots, 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 dots.
Things got pretty spotty on this episode of Spotlight.
They definitely got very dotty. We can't even finish.